Okay, let's sculpt. So first things first, let's change, tap the sun from lit PBR to matte cap. So all this does is make it easier to see when we're sculpting. I'm using this matte cap, so if you tap on it, there's a bunch of different ones. So just look for this one. Sometimes I use this one, but for today, we're gonna go with Naki Clay Red. And also, you can tap here, and the default sphere has like 94,000. It's really big, so I'm just gonna delete that and just add a new sphere. Okay, so let's tap on these three dots. Let's name this body. So we'll just type body in there. Okay. Let's clone. Let's tap three dots and let's name this tail. Okay, so we're on the tail, and let's turn this to the left. So see, we have our little wheel here, our little snap cube. So now we see the right side, which means that this is the front and we're looking at the right side of our mesh. So let's go ahead and hit validate. Again, we're on the tail, but we want to move it around, so we need our gizmo. So let's tap the tool thing here. We see our gizmo, and we're going to move the tail back. And we actually want to bring both of these up above this blue line. That way I can get rid of the grid. So let's pretend this blue line is the floor. So just select both of these, and with our gizmo, we'll just move them up. Okay, so let's go back to the tail. So we tap on the tail, and this is just going to be a tail. So we'll do something like that. Maybe we'll take this, stretch it, and then I like to actually do some sculpting. So we'll use the move tool. We'll make this bigger. That way it's a nice smooth movement. And we want to make sure that we have symmetry on. And right now you can see the two dots, but let's make it easier. Let's tap here and turn on show line. So now we can see our symmetry line. So when symmetry is on and we see this red line, we know that these sides are going to be symmetrical. So again, we're looking at the side view. So let's just make a tail. So we'll make it something like this. Now, of course, when we look at it this way, it doesn't look quite right. So even though you can't see the end part of this this tail, you can still adjust it. As long as this piece is selected, you can still move that. You can turn on X-ray, and then you can see exactly what you're doing. Okay, so we'll make it kind of like this. We'll go ahead and turn X-ray off. Oh, and we want to make this part a little bit more sharp. I still want to pull this up. I just want a nice, smooth slope. Okay, we can fix it a little bit more later. It might be dinosaur, but I'm not sure. I want to turn off this ugly grid, so I'm just going to tap here. Turn that ugly grid off. Okay, so for the body, so we tap on the body. We haven't validated yet. So let's just do this. Let's clone it. So we'll tap here, clone. Let's name these legs. So we'll rename it legs. And actually, let's take the legs, gizmo. So let's move it over here and then hit mirror. Now we have two. Of course, we need to make them smaller. We'll move them down a bit. So these are going to be like the little back legs. So maybe we'll shrink it. Maybe we'll stretch it a little bit. Move it up. Make them bigger. Okay, so something like that looks decent for cute little back legs. So now we want to give the body a little something extra. I'm going to go ahead and validate this. So the legs are validated here, but they're still in a mirror. Let's go ahead and name the mirror legs. So this way, when we validate this whole mirror, it'll just say legs. Otherwise, it'll say mirror. It gets confusing. Okay, so here we have the legs, and let's clone it. And let's name this one arms. Or it could be front legs. I don't know, do they have arms or legs? So we'll just move this up a little bit. So let's take the body, let's validate it, and let's just kind of stretch it out to fit this new shape that we have. So we want to, so I'm just using move, and I'm just sculpting, just kind of stretching it out, kind of paying attention to this nice slope here. Okay, maybe something like that. It's a little too thin. We want to make it a little bit wider here. Maybe a little bit thinner. Maybe bring the belly up a bit. And you can always make the move tool a little bit smaller too, so you have a little bit more control. Okay, we'll make this front part a little wider. Okay, so now we have a little interesting shape here. I'll go ahead and hit right. So now we're looking at the front of it again. I want to make these legs a little wider. Push them up a little bit. And a lot of times I like to take move, and I just like to manipulate them a little bit. So for example, the front legs, I might put a little bend in, but make them a little higher. Kind of give them a little bit of a outward bend. Take the body, we'll move it over a little bit. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Looks like I want to move it up a little. Oops, move the legs up a little bit. Now these legs, let's take move and let's just kind of make them a little bit more interesting. So we'll move them up a little bit, make them a little wider. And we'll just kind of stretch them. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and give them a little bit more of an outward bend. Yeah, kind of like that. So let's give him a really big head. We'll add a sphere. We'll tap our little hidden gizmo. We'll move it up, over. Let's make it really big. Okay, this seems pretty good. Maybe a little bit bigger. I kind of want to think about this curve going through and around. So let's validate. We'll find our sphere and just name it head. We'll use the move tool. Again, we're on the head. Symmetry is on. You can see the line right here. So I'm just going to try to push and pull. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. The body as well. I'm going to adjust the body a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit wider. It's kind of interesting. So I'm liking these shapes, but if I was going to print this, it would be a little bit, it would fall forward. So there's a few things we can do to kind of help that. Is one, we can move the legs up a little bit and even the body. Let's make sure we're using move. So we can move the body up a little bit. Bring the chest part out a little bit. So that looks nice. But also we can add some more weight. And I think it would look cool if we had like a horn and it's sort of two horns and they sort of swirl like that. I think that would be cool. So let's use a tube. And we use path. And we don't need snap. So now we just make our two lines here. Let go. Then we tap this green dot. And let's tap on the line here and here. Okay, so now we have something like this, and we can turn this into a horn or an antennae or anything like that. So to make it curl, I'm going to move this down, and we're just going to add some nodes. We just have to think about the shape of it now. So I'm thinking I'm going to bring this part in. Maybe this part out. Maybe something like that. Maybe I'll add another one in there. So we'll make it a little bit thicker and let's adjust it. So let's hit radius. Make this part bigger, maybe this part a little bit smaller. Looks pretty cool. So now I'm just going to use the gizmo. I'm going to hit align. So if you hit a line, this will always be left and right, so it's a little bit easier to just swivel. We can swivel it like that. We can hit mirror. That looks pretty cool. So let's try this. Let's hit profile. If we want, we can add. So if we go to the profile, let's add a dot here and move that up. Maybe we'll add a dot here and do something like that, just so it's a little less, so there's more grooves. I think that looks better. We'll make this part a little wider. Okay, it looks nice. And we can still use gizmo. I might want to tilt it down, maybe even move it back. I like that. So I'm going to validate it, but I'm going to use the head and move to adapt the head to the horn. So just expand it like so. I like it. Okay, so I like to add really big mouths. So let's go ahead and we'll add a cylinder. We'll use gizmo, we'll move it up, forward. Let's tilt it like so. Let's make it really big. Okay, so we'll use this for the mouth, so I'm going to validate it. And then we just need to cut it in half. So let's use trim, rectangle, and let's just draw a rectangle and we'll just cut it right in half. We'll take this piece, and I'm actually going to turn smooth shading off. So I'm going to go here, smooth shading off. So now we'll use my gizmo and then place it. Oh, this might actually look cool with a nose, a big nose like that. See how this is actually how I get a lot of ideas. Because that would look cool. Okay, so what I want to do is bring this down. I like the nose, so I'm going to add a sphere. We'll use the gizmo. Let's move it up and bring it to that general area. I'm going to make it real big, validate, and I'm just going to use move and just sort of make I'm just going to move it into like a square shape. Push the bottom up, something like this, maybe push the top down, because that usually gives a nice like nose type shape. Okay, so I kind of like that. We're still going to use this for the mouth. Okay, so now that we have that there, I'll put it a little further into the head. So we're going to use a boolean, and we're going to take this shape and we're going to extract it from the head. So this is going to be the mouth. So let's just rename this X so we know to cut it. And now we have the head. We go back to the scene and we have the head and we have X. So both of these are selected, but we're going to hide X. And then we're going to do boolean. Boolean. Whoops. Boolean. So now we've cut that shape out of the mouth. I'm going to go ahead and save this because I've forgotten to save it this whole time. Let's save it as, let's rename it as CC2. Okay, so that looks good. So now I want to take move, and I just wanted to bring the nose up, the bottom part of the nose up, so it sort of aligns with the mouth. That looks great. Yeah, that actually looks quite nice. I want to take the body, and I really want to get rid of it. So here's another opportunity to use X-ray, and you can take trim and lasso. You want to make sure you're on your body. So see how that's the most solid piece? But with the lasso, we're just going to trim it like that. So let's take a look. Turn X-ray off. You can still see a little bit. So you can either use move and just push it down, or you can use clay and sub. But I think that's good. I think that worked. Okay, so I might want to use clay and just give him a little bit more of a chin down here. We might be able to do it with drag. That might be a little bit easier. We sort of just drag this out. And also for mouths, when you're doing character mouths, you want to be careful about this situation, because the mouth would usually come up and it's usually on an angle, it's not straight. So sometimes it can look really weird if it's actually straight. So sometimes I'll take flatten. Oh, let me double check this. Okay, so let's turn smooth shading back to auto. And we'll kind of work on it this way. So I'm liking the way that this is looking, but I think it needs a new voxel remesh. So voxel, we'll remesh at 175. And now I'm going to smooth it. Oh, I always want to make sure that everything is as smooth as I can get it. So I smooth things multiple times. So that looks pretty good. This is sticking out real weird looking. So I'm going to move that back in. But this we need to make a little bit more flat. So maybe I'll use drag. Okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, the mouth looks better that it has that curve there. You always want to have that curve there. And you might even want to use inflate. You can make cheeks here. Make it a little bit bigger, make sure you're on the head. That looks pretty good. And another thing about mouths is sometimes you want to be a hard edge here. So I'll try to drag this up. Drag it up into there, which doesn't look bad. I still want to maintain that nice round curve, but that doesn't look bad. I like it. So let's take this mesh. We can take the body too. The nose. Let's just voxel remesh them together. I'm going to use my little shortcut down here. I'll do it at 200 or maybe 210. We'll remesh. So now all these parts are one piece. And now we can take smooth and we can just smooth it out. Probably should have done the tail as well. So let's do it. Where's the tail? We'll voxel remesh that together. So now that's nice and smooth. Okay, and one last thing that I want to show you. I want you guys to have fun with this and just make your own character and change this, add things. You can add nostrils, teeth, and make sure you tag me. I want to see what you guys do. But it's one thing to go all the way through a sculpt, but I think it's a bit fun to go a certain way and then really just let your imagination take you the rest of the way. But there's one last thing I want to show you, and that's eye sockets, because they can be a bit tricky. So let's take move, and I just want to add a little bit. I just want to bump this up a little bit here. So we'll bring that up a little bit. So I want to take crease, and I kind of want to draw. I want to draw where the eye sockets will be. So they're going to be here, and then up. So maybe something like that. I think that's a good place for an eye socket. So I'm going to use clay, and I'm just going to add clay around that. And see how the horns are kind of getting in the way. Maybe we'll move them back. Maybe even make them a little smaller. Oops. Let's take the head and just kind of adjust it. Again. I always do a lot of adjusting like this. So we'll go clay and back to the head and just add a little bit more of that. Let's smooth it. Okay, we can use clay and sub, and you can actually get a little bit of this space. So we want to have a little bit of this space for the eye. That looks good. Okay, we'll smooth that out. So now we have a nice eye socket. Let's add in some eyes. So what is this? These are the horns. Let's go ahead and label all these. Horns. So these are the horns, these are the legs and arms. Let's go ahead and add a sphere. We're going to take it out of this mirror, and this is going to be E2. That's my code name for eye whites, which is the whites of the eyes. So we'll use the gizmo, we'll move it up, forward. These are going to be our eyes. Let's go ahead and hit mirror. So now you can insert these in here. And one thing about eyes is usually you don't want them too like bugging out of the head too much. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. But I want to flatten them some, so I'm going to flatten it and rotate. Let's take it off of a line so you can see this. The gizmo will be aligned to the eye a little bit better. But see how they're flatter now to the face? That's always going to look better, unless you're doing like a character, you know, like a frog or something, where it makes sense that the eyes are kind of bugged out. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to validate and use move, and I'm just going to move the eyes so they're perfectly the way that I want them on the face. Okay, that looks good. If you want to get fancy, you can take flatten on the head and you can flatten out this piece. Like so. Looks pretty good. Let's smooth this out in there. Smooth all that. This part looks good. Oop. Don't want to lose too much. That looks pretty good. You can take drag sometimes, and you can sort of experiment with the cheeks, however you want them to look. I think that looks good. And lastly, let's put some pupils. So here I'm going to just add another sphere. I'm going to move it up. I'm going to name this one E1. You also have to name the mirrors too. So I'm going to name this one E2. This is going to be mirrored as well. So we'll just move it up. And go ahead and mirror it. Name this E1, and then just tap on the sphere and just concentrate on one of them. And again, you want to try to flatten them out and kind of put them on the surface. Oops. That's a little bit better. Kind of stretch them a little bit. Sometimes that looks good. And then of course you can adjust them. Maybe you want them looking forward instead of like looking up. So you just kind of have to adjust them on the eye a little bit, or make them smaller. So lots of different ways. That looks good. I like them fairly small. So I'm gonna add some teeth, and I don't know, I might add some little plates on the back or something like that. I might change the horns. I just want to show you how to take it off of matte cap. So if you want to color it, just go to here, matte cap, switch to lit PBR. It's going to be white. Here you have your environment, which you want to have on. If you're going to do lighting, turn that off. You can add your lights. You can change your colors and all of that. Let's make this one 2. Looks good. Let's clone it. And then let's use our gizmo and let's spin it around a bit. Give them a nice rim light. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to change the color of everything. I like that color. And I'll turn the environment on. I'll lower it. And then I'll put on good old post-process. Alright. So it looks pretty interesting. I'm going to continue to work on it. But I really want you to have fun. Change it. Make them your own. Give them teeth. Give them feet. Whatever you want to do. But I think we'll see how this video does. But I think it's fun to kind of make things and then kind of send you on your way to finish and make it however you want. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. We'll see you all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy. So if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.